They buried the old man 3 weeks ago. And then his daughter began to fade. Not a fever, not a wound, she simply thinned, paled, woke each morning more tired than she slept, as if something were drinking her while she dreamed. The village had seen it before. They went to the graveyard in the dead cold, and they found the sign every elder dreads, one grave where the snow would not stay. The earth above it lay bare and faintly warm, breathing like a sleeper. Because the man beneath it, they knew, had not finished being alive. In the Turkic world they had a name for the dead who come back hungry, older than the tales of Transylvania, older than the castles and the capes. They called him the Obur. And the strangest thing about him is not what he does to your blood. It is what his name did to the word you already use for him. Not everyone who dies becomes an Obur. The old belief is specific. He is made from a certain kind of life. The one who could never be filled, the glutton, the miser, the one whose hunger the whole village noticed while he still breathed. The word Obur means exactly that, the devourer, the one who gulps and is never satisfied. Such a person, they said, carries that hunger past the grave. There are other doors into it, to die unbaptized or unwashed, to have a cat leap across your corpse before burial, to die with a bargain unpaid, a rage unspoken, a love unfinished. Any life that ends still clutching at the world can refuse to let the world go. And the body that refuses does not rot. That is the first sign. While the honest dead soften and return to earth, the Obur lies in his grave fresh, flushed, and full, as if he had eaten well. Because he has. The village learned to read the graveyard like a book. Snow that melts on a single grave. Small holes in the soil, as if something breathes through them. A body that has shifted in its coffin, turned onto its side, one hand risen to the mouth. And when they opened the grave, which they only did in the worst years, they found him ruddy where he should be grey, swollen where he should be sunken, with fresh dark fluid at his lips and his nails and hair grown long. To the villagers, this was proof beyond argument, the dead man was feeding. Every single one of those signs is real. Exhumers across 3 centuries recorded them, swore oaths on them, killed because of them. And every single one of them, we will see, is a lie the body tells as it decays. But first, the family. Here is the cruelest rule of the Obur, and the one that matters most. He does not stalk strangers. He goes home. The first to sicken are always his own, his wife, his children, his brothers, the people who wept at his grave. Night after night, they say, he returns to the house he knew, sits on the chest of someone he loved, and takes a little more of their strength, until they too grow pale and thin, and finally follow him down. A whole family could empty this way, one deathbed after another, through a single winter. The villagers watched it happen and drew the only conclusion the world had given them: the dead man was pulling his family into the grave to keep him company. They were watching something real. They simply had its name, and its mercy, exactly backwards. In Anatolia, the returning dead is the hortlak, from hortlamak, to spring back up, to revive. The one who will not stay down. In Turkish and Balkan villages, the feeding dead is the Obur, and sometimes the jadu, a word that drifted from witch to revenant and back. Cross the steppe to the Tartars of Kazan and you find the Uber, among the Chuvash, the Vupa, the same devouring spirit, the same swollen grave. These are not borrowed European monsters wearing Turkish coats. They are old, steppe old, nomad old, carried west in the saddlebags of migrating peoples across 1,000 years. Which brings us to the word. Because one of these names did not stay in the East. One of them walked all the way into your language, and you have been saying it your whole life. The word is vampire. You know it from films and paperbacks, and you probably think it is Romanian, or Latin, or something Bram Stoker invented. It is none of those. Trace it back and it shrinks, and darkens, and turns east. English took vampire in the 1730s from French and German. They took it from the Serbian vampir. And the Serbian word descends from an old Slavic root, upa, written down as early as the year 1047, when a Novgorod priest signed his name Upa the Wicked. But where did the Slavs get it? Here the trail forks, and scholars have argued for a century. One of the oldest and most striking answers, first proposed by the linguist Franz Miklosic, is that the Slavs borrowed it from their Turkic neighbors on the steppe, from Uber, the Tartar devouring spirit, cousin to the Chuvash Fupa, and to the Turkish word you just learned, Obur. Other linguists dispute the sound changes, some think the borrowing ran the other way. The origin is genuinely unsettled, and we will not pretend otherwise. But the possibility remains one of the great quiet facts of folklore, that the most famous monster word in the English language may have set out, long ago, as a Turkish word for a man who could never stop eating. We follow the trail as far as it runs. After that, it belongs to the steppe. And we know the exact moment the word crossed over. In the 1720s and 30s, the Habsburg Empire pushed its border into Serbia, land that had been Ottoman for centuries, where the old Balkan and Turkic beliefs ran deep. Austrian army doctors and officers, sober men with paperwork, began filing astonished reports of villages digging up their dead. Two names reached Vienna and never left: Petar Blagojević, whose neighbors died within days of his burial and who was found undecayed with blood at his mouth, and Arnold Paole, a soldier whose entire hamlet was exhumed in a panic. These were official military documents, stamped, witnessed, filed. The newspapers of Europe printed them, and the word printed with them, vampire. A Turkic hunger, filtered through Slavic soil, stamped by an Austrian clerk, and handed to the whole world in a single decade. Everything that came after, Dracula, the capes, the castles, is a footnote to those village graves. If a village decided a grave held an Obur, the remedies were grim and precise. Drive iron through him with a nail, a needle, a spike, because iron pins the restless dead the way it wards every other spirit in this series. Stake the heart with hawthorn or aspen. Sever the head and lay it at the feet, so he cannot rise and cannot find it. And when nothing else would serve, burn the body to ash and scatter it on running water, the same running water that drowned the red woman's ember and carried away the caraconchulus. There was a gentler trick too, for a grave they feared but hoped to spare: pour millet or poppy seed into it. The Obur, they believed, was compelled to count every single grain before he could rise, and dawn always came first. A hunger defeated by arithmetic. Hold these cures in mind, because the men who dug up their neighbors and burned them were not simply mad with superstition. They were, without knowing it, doing something that worked. The fear is older than any of its names. The Mesopotamians dreaded the Giddim, the dead who returned when their graves were neglected. The Greeks weighted their corpses with stones and sometimes pinned them, afraid of the revenant they called the Vrika. And the nomads of the steppe buried their dead under heavy mounds, kugans, sometimes bound, sometimes with the feet severed, as if to be certain the sleeper stayed asleep. Everywhere humans have buried their dead, they have also, quietly, taken steps to keep them buried. The Obur is one face of a fear as old as the first grave, that the dead do not always agree to be dead. In the Anatolian and Gagauz villages, the defenses began before burial, not after. Wash the body properly and completely. For an unwashed corpse was a door left open. Lay iron on the chest, a knife, a nail, while it waited for the grave. Never let a cat, above all a black one, leap across the body, for that leap was said to be the spark that woke the Obur. Keep watch. Say the words. Bury him deep and bury him right. It was all, in its own grammar, a kind of care, a set of rituals that gave the living something to do with their terror, and the dead a dignified path down. The village could not have told you why it worked. But in the worst years, the years of wasting sickness, it sometimes did. Because sometimes, digging up the dead and burning them did stop the deaths. Not for the reason the villagers believed, but it stopped them. When a wasting illness moved through a household, and the family exhumed the first to die and destroyed the body, they were, by pure accident, performing a public health act, removing a focus of contagion, ending the gatherings around an infected grave, burning bedding and belongings along with the corpse. The panic was wrong about the cause and right about the danger. The dead really were connected to the deaths that followed. Just not by teeth. By something smaller, and far more patient, that the villages would not have a name for until the microscope arrived. So what was really in those warm graves? What made an honest corpse look like it had fed on its family? For 400 years there was only one answer: the dead man was a monster. But consider what the villagers were actually doing. They were standing at the edge of an open grave, in the worst winter of their lives, reading the body of someone they had loved for signs of a crime, and the body was answering them in a language no one on earth could yet translate. The fresh face, the ruddy skin, the blood at the lips, the grown nails, the family wasting away one by one, every clue the exhumers trusted has, today, a colder and more certain explanation. They were not fools. They were the first forensic scientists, working for centuries too early, with grief for a microscope. The Obur was never lying. The body was. Here is what actually happens beneath the snow. Decomposition does not begin the moment we imagine. In cold ground, a body can stay recognizable for weeks. Gut bacteria produce gas, and the gas bloats the corpse, filling the sunken cheeks, rounding the belly, making a thin man look well-fed and flushed. That same pressure forces a dark fluid, not fresh blood, but the purge of decay, up through the mouth and nose, staining the lips exactly where the exhumers looked for their proof. As the outer skin dries and pulls back, the nails and the teeth seem to lengthen, and stubble seems to grow. A corpse shifted by its own gases can even groan, as air escapes the throat. Every legendary sign of the vampire is a documented, ordinary stage of death. And the family, wasting away? That was the deadliest clue of all, and the truest. Tuberculosis, consumption, moves silently through a household. The first to die is buried, and over the following months those who nursed him, shared his air, slept in his bed, begin to cough, and thin, and fade. To a world without germ theory, it looked exactly like the buried one was pulling them down after him. The most famous case is not even from the East. In 1892, in New England, the body of a girl named Mercy Brown was exhumed by her own neighbors. Her heart burned, because tuberculosis was emptying her family. The vampire panic was never really about the dead. It was the shape that grief and contagion took, in the dark, before anyone could see the enemy. They dug up the wrong body, but they were right to be afraid. They opened the grave to end the hunger. And the science, in time, explained everything they found there: the swollen face, the dark mouth, the wasting family. Everything except the question the open grave leaves behind. Why does a man come back at all? What is it in a human life that can refuse the earth? The forensic report closes the case on the body. It has nothing at all to say about the hunger. And the hunger, it turns out, is the only part of the story that was never really about the dead. In the Sufi reading, the Obur is not a demon of the blood. He is the nafs, the lower self, the appetite, that was never disciplined, never filled, and so at death cannot let go. There is an old Turkish proverb that says it better than any theology: İnsanın gözünü ancak toprak doyurur. Nothing ever fills the eye of a human being but the earth of the grave. Whatever he eats, whatever he seizes and hoards, he is not satisfied, because nothing in this world was ever what he was truly hungry for. He was hungry to return to his own origin, and he mistook that hunger for a hunger to consume. So he feeds, and only the grave soil will ever fill that eye. He returns to his family first because his love was attachment, not release, a rope, not a blessing. The villagers said the words over every grave: "İnna ilahi raciun," to him we return. The Obur is the one who heard those words and shook his head. Not yet. Not ever. Not unless I take them with me. And here the folklore says something the science cannot, that the grave he will not leave is not only in the earth. In this reading, the grave is also the body itself, the narrow place where the unwoken self lies waiting, in its own kind of torment, unable to rise. He cannot pass between his bodies, the body of earth, the body of fire, the body of light we named in the snow. He cannot meet the one he truly is. Not because a demon holds him down, but because he will not wake. The old cures name the medicine without knowing it. Iron, the discipline that pins the restless self. The 1,000 counted seeds, the patience that outlasts appetite until the dawn. The running water, the surrender that finally carries the clinging self away, back toward the sea it came from. The Obur is not only the dead who came back. He is the part of every one of us that does not want to make the crossing, that would rather stay, and hold, and consume, than open its hand and return. The door was always open. He simply would not walk through it. Do not fear the grave that stays warm. Fear the hunger that will not cool. By morning the snow had settled over him at last. The earth lay still. Whatever had refused to rest had, somehow, been let go. Because the hunger only ends one way, not with iron and not with fire. It ends when the hand finally opens. Next time, leave the graveyard and walk out past the last field, onto the mountain road at night, and something enormous walks behind you, hair like a bear, a voice like a landslide, wearing its skin inside out. The traveler who hears it must never, ever run. This is the Gulyabani, the giant that owns the empty places. And the word the Arabs gave the world for the thing that haunts the graveyard and the waste, you already know that one too. Walk with a companion. And do not answer the road when it calls your name.